Good evening. I'm Vanessa Rodriguez. I'm a first-year doctoral student here. I want to thank you for sharing the story of your grandfather, and I was really moved by how he really utilized the community and also seemed to be a master of the benefits of local control in order to provide for the specific needs that the community had. However, I feel our country is really moving away from the idea of local control and individual responsibility with NCLB and with national standards. And not only do I fear the standardization of this, but also the precedent that it may set for people to not join together as a community as part of their individual responsibility, which I think was extremely powerful in the story that you told, and one that could lose that diversity that really is specific to a local level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this tension between federal policy and local control in education is a very real one. By the way, not something that most countries share. Most countries, it's national policy and national testing, and they're absolutely unashamed of it. As a matter of fact, they think it's what makes them very strong. If you are a German student and you want to get into gymnasium, you're going to take the same test whether you're in Bavaria or in Dresden. So it is a kind of American tradition, and it probably does reflect our diversity as well as our federal structure. I don't think there's anything wrong, though, with the federal government saying, if somebody doesn't read at third grade level, by the time they are third or fourth grade, they're probably not going to read, and that's not acceptable. And you're not going to get federal money if your schools do that, because we do have federal money flowing into education. And somebody has to call to account the issue of standards, and I have no problem with that being the federal government. Now, the problem with having standards, national standards, is well-known when people start teaching to the test. And that is a problem because I said the other night, I am a big believer in broad education. So it's not just math and science, it's also literature and music and drama and all of those things that make a complete person. And you will, if you're not careful, measure what you can measure. And it's a lot easier to measure certain things than it is to measure other things. So you have to be careful about that. You also can have local implementation of national standards. But what you can't have is a locality that says it's okay for our kids not to learn. That's not okay. And I think that's what NCLB was trying to say.
Just a quick follow-up. So in your mind, what could people do at the university level or even at the government level, I feel in their language, so that as a country we understand that the standards are flexible? Because what I hear more of now is that the standards, right on the tail of the standards are the assessments and the curriculum design and the specific lesson plans. And so that I feel we have this nature, and maybe it's a type A personality of like, well, now we have these standards, we're going to now create this funnel of where we're going to be extremely specific. And as the first woman who asked you a question here, there's a lot that's lost when we get really specific about the content that we teach, such as, various studies of differing peoples.
No, I agree. Look, we can all agree, though, that there ought to be some things that everybody knows how to do, right? Everybody needs to know how to add, subtract, divide. I don't do that so well myself. I always thought I was missing class the day they did long division because I have a lot of trouble with it. But there are some things that everybody ought to be able to do. So those seem to me to be standards that make sense. You ought to be able to read at third grade level in third grade. Now, the content of what you read might be varied. And it might be that one way to get kids to read is to put them in a play and have them have the fun of actually learning to recite poetry, which is one of the ways we learn to read. And so, yes, I think the implementation, one thing we tried to do with the Center for New Degeneration was to make the day, the 3 to 6 period after the school day not feel like you'd been in the classroom doing the same thing. And so the teachers found innovative ways to introduce the material to the kids. That's what great teaching is about. And perhaps it starts with giving teachers standards, but more flexibility in how they get kids to that standard. But the standard's got to be met.